Mayor Pro Tem, we are ready to go.
Awesome. You're positive. Yes? Okay. Good evening and welcome to everyone that's here for our regular city council meeting Tuesday. See?
No, it was already on YouTube.
Okay. So it's Tuesday, April 26, 2022 at 7 p.m. Mayor Monson is joining via Zoom soon. Looks like he's not on yet, but he plans to attend that way. Otherwise, we are all here. And we will begin with a prayer or a thought by Dave.
Our dear gracious Father in heaven, we come before you this evening. We're grateful that the council can come together to discuss meaningful issues for the city, and that they can have thy spirit to guide and direct their decisions and direction. Grateful for good turnout of our residents and those impacted by these decisions, and pray that their voices will be heard and that they will feel heard and be able to move forward in a positive way and positive solutions for the benefit of our city. And these things we pray and give thanks for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Now if you'll stand and say the pledge with us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, to those of you joining from the public, there should be, maybe there's none left. There are sometimes agendas back on that back credenza, and there is a, if anyone wants one, we can make more copies. So looks like we're good.
Just for you.
That was kind of scary. And there is a sign up sheet going around. I was going to say a roll. It's not really a roll. And so if you haven't signed that, please sign that. We're down to the approval of the consent agenda and minutes from April 12th, 2022. Has council had time to look over those? And are there any, is there any discussion or corrections? Otherwise, I would accept a motion to approve.
I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for April 26, 2022, and the city council meeting minutes from April 12th, 2022.
Second it.
That's Bowers and Gosser. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Awesome. Does anyone have conflict of interest that they need to declare for anything that's on the agenda tonight?
I may have
Okay,
those water issues that we may be talking about. I may have some issues because I am also a water user.
okay. Thank you.
You need, sorry, we were all water users.
No.
No,
I have a farm that's getting water.
thank you.
So you're an out of
You're-
city limits water user is what you're declaring. Okay. So we're now to the point in our agenda for public input. And anyone wishing to address the council on any item is invited to do so. And this is an opportunity for you to bring information to the council. Typically, we do not ask questions back. That's not really what the point of this meeting is. And so sometimes clarifying questions will be asked, but there's not going to be a back and forth discussion at this point or really in our meeting. And since there are a large number of people here, if someone has already said what you felt needed to be said, then we would encourage you maybe to let them speak for you. But people are welcome to contribute. Again, since there are such a large number of people here, we will limit it to 3 minutes per person. So if you do choose to come up and speak to us, we ask that you come to the podium and that you say your name clearly, and if your name might be hard to spell, then spell it so that we get it right for our minutes. Yep.
Scary to go.
Okay, let me get my timer going.
Okay, my name's Kelly Laws. This is the first time I've ever been on this side of the pulpit. I sit there for 18 years. My number one responsibility is water. And we have missed the city council or administrator, somebody has misused the city water. The number one responsibility of the city of Blanding is to provide water for its citizens. I understand the politics that went behind. I understand the fact that if you put it in recapture, it's free and you can sell it. But as this council sat here and spent close to $1 million to put in a pumping system and a pipeline to pump water from recapture back to the treatment plant, so that we don't get ourselves in a situation that we have to now charge an inflated rate for water, saying we don't have water. The fact that we have water, we could have put it in the reservoirs. I think it was offered to us for sale by the irrigation company to begin with, which would have been a smart thing to do, because then we wouldn't have had to pump it. But nonetheless, it went to recapture. Now it can be pumped back to the system. It should never, never, never been sold as raw water. You cannot make enough money off of selling that raw water to compensate for what the citizens of Blanding are paid you in culinary rates. I mean, that was a total misappropriation of water, and somebody ought to be held accountable for it. It's a disgrace.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Chris Ewald, and I'm a commercial pilot, flight instructor, an aircraft maintenance technician, an authorized aircraft inspector, regional manager of Guardian Flight, a small business owner, aircraft owner, hangar tenant, and Blanding resident. Come back to talk again about the airport issues at hand. I know David sent out an email with some of those topics. I'd like to quickly recap my stance on some of those. The first is the hail damage repairs. I'm in full support of that. I think that's great. I'm glad we didn't let that slip through the cracks. The hangar rates, we're discussing an increase on those. I think a small increase is appropriate. I think we do need to, however, keep rates fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory. I think there's better ways to generate revenue than tripling the rent. Tie down rates, I think tie down rates make any airport unattractive. I think, again, there's better ways to generate revenue. Parking rates and parking passes. This has some good possibilities, but it could be very hard to enforce. I think if we impose too many rates, we're again just going to make our airport very unattractive to users. Parking fines. I think it's a good idea if we had some policies in place that could have possibly prevented some past incidents that we've had. So I'm in support of that moving forward. City ordinances about the airport. I think that's long overdue. I'm in full support of that. I think it would be great to have those policies in place, but I think we need to be very smart about it. We need to ensure that we're in compliance. So I think I showed you guys last week, there's a 506-page document, airport compliance manual. And to stay in compliance with this means that we make ourselves eligible for federal grants. There's
Got
tons.
1 minute left, just like.
Okay, so what I'd like to see is I'd like to see our airport flourish. I'd like to see the city and the airport work together. I'd like to see our airport be an example for other airports in the state. Currently, we generate $11.1 million in economic activity. That's no laughing matter. We currently employ 30 people, local people. We've developed an apprenticeship program. We've done amazing things. I know that we can do more things. What I propose is that we just pause on the propositions for now. I propose that we organize an airport advisory board. I think our airport is big enough, has a big enough economic impact that we need to organize an advisory board with a team of experts. Use that board, gather their input to make changes that will promote positive growth. Figure out what a fair market value is for the hangars and for the upcoming land that's going to be leased. Let's work together, pursue grants, pursue solutions for our hangar shortage, and most importantly, just work together to make this airport the best that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a question for him, and I don't know if you mind if I ask it now, or if you mind if I ask it. So you mentioned, I care very much about the airport and especially Guardian Flight. Well, everyone who's out there, I think you're right. I think it has a lot of potential, but you've mentioned several times other ways to generate revenue. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Through the pursuit of grants, this airport could generate millions of dollars. And I think that's one of the best ways for us to generate revenue. There's different grant sources, FAAP, ADAP, AIP, ARRA, CAR. Yes, there's a whole multitude of different grant sources specifically directed at airports. If we had somebody dedicated to pursue that money, we could generate millions of dollars for this airport. I think that would be huge. I've also got some other ideas for smaller ways to generate revenue, but by far the grants and subsidies is the biggest generator.
Thank you. I just have a concern with grants because it's just government funding, it's tax dollars coming back. I'm hoping to see more ways to generate revenue through private funds, which is kind of what we're proposing, but I understand there's other ways, and I think an airport advisory board might be a good idea for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and also I think it's worth mentioning that the Guardian Hangar was built with grant money. And that's been a huge contributor to the economic impact in the area.
It's true. Thank you.
And I'd be welcome to share my other ideas on the economic growth as well. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
So, there's a lot of stuff here. I'm Jason Holiday. And if the city has plenty of water to sell, then why are the rates going to go up to use more water than you should? You're going to be paying more water. That's what qualms I have about this. The city should not be selling water at all. And I know that they were offered to buy water and they returned that down, but yet you sold it. And I'd like to know how come it didn't go through the council, women and men here. That should have been something that important, should have went through them instead of just going to doing it. And how does an employee have so much power to okay that with the manager, which I don't think is right on it. And I'd just like to know the answers to some of these questions. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Eva Ewald. I wasn't necessarily planning on speaking today, so I'll be really, really quick. But I will say that after spending several hours researching alongside our resident expert at my house and also having a very personal investment in the airport, I worked for Guardian Flight before it migrated to South Jordan. I worked there for almost 8 years. I was part of a huge acquisition series where it included Hawaii Life Flight, Alaska, several different places, traveled to South Dakota to set up bases as a marketing recruiter, understand the ebbs and flows of insurance, how we bill, where it comes from, and the revenue that was coming in. Not from a mechanic standpoint, but from an economic standpoint, who we were paying, how it boosted the economy, how we contributed to different teams and sports and activities, medical things that could be offered here, and all of the above. 2 points that I would like to make. I hope that in the next minutes that are printed, that instead of saying we've heard from 2 interested parties that the rates are unfair or the fines being approached by the city council were disputed, I hope that you look around this room and see that there's way more than 2. And I'm grateful that they're here today in support of their livelihood, essentially. After leaving Guardian Flight, I went to work for the school district and kind of got a sideline view of how things were operated, and especially from the mechanic standpoint, aspect of the company I hadn't really experienced before, but got to witness firsthand how it grew from basically a revolving door of out-of-towners that moved in, didn't like landing, moved back out. same thing over and over again. They even had temporary housing set up for these people.
1 minute.
And they were talented and they were good, but they didn't really want to be here. It was either a stepping stone or a shock to the system about how rural it was. But this apprenticeship program has actually grown so many lifelong economic contributors to this community. And I feel like skirting grants and saying it's tax money and maybe being a little bit afraid of them means that we go and get that tax money. Well, why not go get it from the government? Because that's where it came from, is all of these people that are paying into their taxes, paying to the economy, and use that money to have it come back to us, not making them pay it twice or maybe 3 times by being fined and feed to death. So thank you for your time.
Okay,
It'll take me 3 minutes to get to.
you can stay back there if you'll just speak loudly.
Loud?
Yes,
Okay, too loud.
say your name.
My name is Robert Ogle, OGLE. I haven't been here for maybe 2 years on this topic, and it was time to come and visit with you. Mayor, if you're in attendance, thank you. Council, thank you for just a few moments. I've come before because I'm the Just Serve Coordinator for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm not going to turn the podium into a pulpit, but I do want you to know that justserve.org is a worldwide service opportunity from the church. It's a website. If you have not visited, visit justserve.org. It's organized by zip code, so even though it's worldwide accessible, you go to your local zip code and you see service opportunities. If you went to 84511, you'd see 4 or 5 listed right now, and throughout the year they revolve, they change, they get fulfilled. The city has people needs, and that's what Just Serve is about: creating, listing, and asking for people who want to serve. And then as the projects come due, with the 4th of July, we used to do some spring cleanup projects. We can list it on Just Serve, and people can volunteer. This is something I'd like to do. Many of you have other contacts in town, other organizations in town. People here in the audience have many organizations that they belong to. So justserve.org is very, very simply a potential resource of bodies, people. So if you have needs, go to justserve.org. I'm going to give you my email address. If you want to contact me personally, it's ROGLEONE@gmail.com. ROGLEONE@gmail. It's help, it's out there, and I invite you to take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rick Meyer, and I'm coming here representing the San Juan County Assessor's Office. I'm the county assessor, and it's a privilege to be here tonight. And I can't do it justice for 3 minutes. Okay, so I'll try to do some of the things I want to do. So I was elected to find out about the county's processes of money and how things are collected and how the county runs and all these type of things. So at this point in time, just very quickly, we did hire a fee appraiser named Gordon Lowe to go through the entire county and do all the commercial properties on an appraisal basis for this year. And we hired him for about $66,000 to do 400 plus appraisals. Now, one of the things I want the public and the council to know is just like when you hire somebody to appraise your home or your business or a piece of property that you want to sell or buy, that's what we're in the process of doing, is finding out the values of the properties in the county. So the assessor's position, and Randy Rarick, we just hired Randy the first of the month to be my deputy assessor. So I'm grateful for him. And the appraisal's job, the appraiser, is to just assess a value on your properties. So tonight I brought a paper here. So I got Cheryl's appraisal on your house.
Uh-oh.
I don't think this has to be read in the public record. Personal information.
Eric? And Cheryl's business.
All right, you're down to a minute.
Okay.
No, my business I can handle, my home.
So take a minute, look at those and just ask yourself one question. Would you sell your house today for what that value, that market value is on that piece of paper there? Would you sell your home today? Okay, Cheryl, you're pretty good. How about you, Eric?
If I could see the market value on her, I would. I can't comment because I can't see a market value. Oh, hell no, I wouldn't sell it for that.
Right, okay. So the job of the assessor's office is trying to get close to market value of a property. And the Blanding City just recently bought a property for $50,000. So Blanding City set a market value on that piece of property, providing it for the 50,000. So we look at that and go on and judge. But I'd like to come back as the assessor and talk more about the processes of what we do in our office, how it affects Blanding City and the county in general, and how it affects the individuals here.
So you want to be as well liked as us?
Well, Rick, I can get you, we can schedule you as a presentation. at the
I'd
next
like that.
meeting.
That would be much more beneficial. If you came as on the agenda, then you would have more time.
10 seconds. A gentleman called me up the other day. He said, come out, look at my house. I went out and looked at this property north of Monticello. I went, oh my goodness, we had a value for 190,000. I dropped it $50,000 because it was not worth the 190,000. So we work with the public, we work with everybody to make sure we're fair and equitable and doing our best. Okay, so thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Go ahead, come to my house.
You might not like his answer. It might be higher than you want.
I just had mine done, and this is like
I'm David Red. I've spent my whole life in Blanding. 37 years at the airport. I've seen the growth come and go. Right now, in this crisis that I believe we're in, generating money from the users of the airport's a little bit tough because we're all trying to survive ourselves. So to raise those rates, it took me 30+ years to finally afford an airplane, which now it looks like I'm gonna have to sell it due to these hikes and increase in rate. General aviation, folks, is on its way out. So this airport relies on the users. 90% of the airport is funded by the federal government. 10%, or I guess 80% is by federal, another 10 is by the state, and 5 by the county, and 5 by the city. Personally, I'd like to know where the revenues that you're collecting now are going, because they're certainly not on the maintenance of those hangars or the facility. Everything that goes into that airport is grant or subsidized. It is always subsidized. I've seen the growth and I've seen the shrinkage. There's times I thought the airport was done. Even a city official here told me we need to go down there with a cat and doze it under. People don't realize that a town thrives on the use of an airport. It's important, but to penalize the few members that we have, in the first time in 30+ years, I've seen some growth down there in the worst time I can possibly imagine right now. Fuel prices have tripled. Insurance has tripled. Trying to hold on to what you have is hard for everybody, including you guys too. I understand that. The airport has a purpose in this community.
1 minute.
And running the general aviation out is not going to help anything at that airport. Your funding relies on what traffic is at that airport. And you start cutting down on the traffic. Years ago, the city wanted to charge tie down fee. We lost quite a few customers. I've already seen and experienced all that you guys are talking about. I would love to see a committee formed, and I would love to see something other than individuals that aren't familiar with the airport making those decisions. So if we can get something going, that's what I prefer. We used to have a council. That member of the city took care of that. He didn't want to be bothered with it anymore. It was important. There were community members that used to be highly involved in that. Philip was a great asset to that airport, and I'm sorry he's no longer with us. However, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate the jobs that you guys do. I know it's difficult to listen to the gripes of this people in the city, and you have a hard job to do, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I just want to comment. I am thankful for all of you guys sitting here tonight. I've been on council since January this round, and I came to council for 3 months before, and there were very rarely more than about 4 or 5 people here. Most of them people that had to be here.
I agree.
Agree.
Oh, wish we could see this more often.
Can I ask
We're
David
too
a
boring
question?
for people that want to come that often.
Usually.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I ask David a question? David, do you tie down or do you have a hanger? I'm just curious. All right, good.
All right, anyone else?
In the back.
Okay, can you make it up to the podium?
Yeah. I'm old, but that's out.
She meant the Iowa.
All right.
My name is Glenn Gurney. And right now I am renting 3 hangars from here up in the city. I have a total of 7 aircraft. That is a product of a business. My wife and I used to do accounting work for Indian tribes all over the West. We had different aircraft for different places we were going. If I had to land on a dirt road, I couldn't take my twin Cessna. I had to take an aircraft that could land on the dirt road. So been here a long, long time, seen a lot. And I don't have that much to say other than every place I've seen before, and I do have some aircraft stationed in, well, I got one up in Wyoming and one down in San Angelo, Texas. But in all of the airports, the way it works is you have an airport advisory committee, and that, you know, people of the community associated with the airport. Lander's a good example. The city council never tells the airport what to do, or the airport manager. It doesn't work that way. There's going to be a member of the city council on the airport advisory committee. The airport advisory committee meets, and that'll be the people renting hangars, the people at the airport. You have to fly pilots and whatever. So they all meet up and they try to, as David was saying, we try to come up with an idea that make the airport better. And we really do. And we'd like to see more pilots. We'd like to see more aviation. If there's an issue, like with parking, whatever, then that will be turned over to the airport advisory committee. The city will say, we want to see what the people that are at the airport think. And then we'll say, sometimes it might be rough. We might say, well, that person needs to move their airplane over here. Now, we
1
don't,
minute.
he's causing a problem. So then the member of the city council will go back to the council and tell them what the airport committee has said. And that's usually the way it always works. What we have here is it's gone backwards. All of this discussion should have been at an airport advisory committee, which the FAA wants you to have. That makes them very happy. You could ask them and see what they think about that. But we did have an incident at the airport. Sometimes things goes wrong up there, and I had to contact the FAA, and they said, what did the airport manager say about that? And so we don't really have a super active airport manager. He takes care of the grants, does a very good job of that, I think, you know. But it's a lot of, administrative work. But as far as boots on the ground, looking around, what do we need at the airport? Like all those drainage pipes that are all got blown off the hangars probably 20 years ago, which, I'm thinking we want to make an insurance claim for something happened 20 years ago. And they fell off because of no maintenance. As David was saying earlier, I mean, we don't have anybody out there fixing it. Sometimes I get out there and fix it. My son helps rivet some of the guttering back on, but you got to be constantly working on it. That could be all addressed, if we had our airport advisory committee, they could say, you guys never helped us down here.
Right, that's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Casper Pedersen. I'm part owner and manager of Freedom Fuels Blending Air Support, FBO on the Blanding Municipal Airport. And I just wanted to say something since everybody has something to say here. We submitted a letter or two to the city council a month ago or so, and I was just wanting to represent and ask if that was a pretty clear letter or if there was any questions about it or concerns. We as the FBO were, along with Guardian Fly, we're at the face of the airport. People fly in there, we greet them every day, we cater to them, bend over backwards to them and help them and clean their toilets and things like that. And we put a lot of time, effort, and money into providing our customers with a better service down there, something that we've seen a very positive increase of traffic flow with, which we're super happy to see. And we want to continue that service. We want to continue increasing the traffic flow of the airport, which we think will bring more money back to the city of Blanding through the fuel flowage fee that we're providing, and also bringing more people into the town of Blanding where they can spend their money at businesses here, hotels, places to eat. Hopefully some more places will open up. I've heard some rumors. I don't know.
We've heard some rumors.
Yeah, right. We've received a lot of feedback from our customers, and we use that to better our business down there. We've provided heated de-icing service now down there, which is something that's critical in the winter months. There's been several flights of babies that have been turned down because these bigger companies from out of town that can fly babies with incubators on board can't come here because of the off chance that they can't fly out. And they now can, and they see our efforts and they purchase fuel from us because they're grateful for us being out there. Anyways, I just wanted to say that Freedom Fuels would love to be a part of this committee that's being proposed, and we'd like to work very closely with the city and with other people that are being involved with that, and bring our expertise and knowledge into it and help in any way that we can. When we first proposed this RFBO, we were wanting to have the hangars, but I believe there was one member that didn't want it, and then he left town a month or two later, and now we're where we're at today. But any suggestions or things that we can help with along those lines, we'd love to offer up our help and suggestions with that. We work very closely with the people renting from those hangars, and we talk to them on a daily basis, and they came to us first before we even knew about this whole thing going on. So we'd like to be working closer with the city and this committee with it, so we can be more involved and help in any way that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there any questions on those letters?
No, your letter was excellent.
That
Thank
was
you.
really good.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Clements, I've been one of these things before. I'm a local flight instructor. I own Clements Aviation, and I'm a corporate pilot for Roman Air. We rent one of the hangars down at Blanding. Just wanted to give a few ideas. You asked about different ideas for bringing in income to the city of Blanding. General aviation is, in particular, the piston engine, single piston engine market is really a relatively low income market for, there's a maximum to how big that can grow. I don't think raising hangar rents and having tie down fees is the way we want to go to increase
to increase income because that does deter general aviation customers. The elasticity, the market elasticity is lower than you would think for general aviation customers. And there are people who will have to leave hangars, and especially for transient aircraft, they'll just choose to go to a different airport if there's ramp fees and stuff like that. They want the nicest, cheapest airport possible to go into, and if they see a better opportunity somewhere else, they will go somewhere else. So, but I fully understand the fact that the airport needs to be a profitable source of income for the city. I see it as a way to bring in customers who will help grow the economy of Blanding, as opposed to the airport itself being the source of income. So if the goal of increasing revenue for the city, if that is the goal, then I would more cater to the general aviation
You have 1 minute.
customers as opposed to trying to get more income from them. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Tanner Holiday. I'm here as a concerned citizen also about the raw water. I had questions about this, the city of Blanding selling raw water. If, we received our little thing in the mail this week, or last week, whenever it was, saying our rates are going to increase. We're in a drought. We're being told to conserve water, conserve water, conserve water. Your rates are going up. But we can find 10 acre feet to sell. That is a joke. When I had questions about this, San Juan Record posted a thing. I tagged the city of Blanding in it. And the answer I got is, you are completely uneducated. This is from the city. You are uneducated. I have a hard time even listening to you from this. You have no idea what you're talking about. Do you even know how many gallons 10 acre feet is? Yes, it's around 3.3 million gallons of water that we're selling. That answer is completely unacceptable, unprofessional. Sadly, this is how government has got to be, is we are better than you. They don't seem to want to listen to the citizens of Blanding, and I have some concerns about that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tyson Shumway. I've never been to one of these, but for the past few years, I've worked for the Water Conservancy. And well, I just started with Water Conservancy, but I also worked for Blanding Irrigation Company. And over the course of working for these guys, I've learned how the system works, where water comes from, allocations, different deals of that sort, how much water comes off the mountain, how we decide who gets that water, how much water is there. The city has a huge portion that they own through they bought out farmers water with. So they actually do own a part of the Blanding Irrigation Company itself. But this year we proposed, all the farmers in the meeting proposed that we would sell our water to the Blanding city for, I believe it was $300 an acre foot, which is a little steep, maybe, but gravity fed to your guys' reservoirs is pretty cheap, I think, as Kelly was saying. You spent millions of dollars into a pump that you have to pump out of recapture. And I believe you guys are pumping roughly 35 acre feet a week at a recapture, I believe is what we're at right now. But I find it kind of ridiculous that we made a proposal to you guys to sell you water, and you guys shut that down. The exact words was used. I vetoed that. I didn't even take it to the city council, the guy that was on the board for Blanding Irrigation Company. So that idea between him and whoever else was working with him on that was between two people, not the voice of Blanding City. So I find that ridiculous myself, and I think there should be something done about that, especially where we offered to sell you the water. And instead, we're watering our fields with our water that we have. And it's sad to say, I mean, I'm a farmer, love to watch my fields grow, but in the middle of the night when I got a sick kid, it's nice to turn on the water and get them a glass of water or get them some medication. So I 100% believe that the citizens before anything else, but you guys need to get together and figure out how to make that right. I think somebody should be held accountable for that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right. And it looks like no one else wants to speak with us. So thank you to those of you that participated. We appreciate you being part of the process because it is really hard to sit at this table and make decisions when no one from the community gives us any feedback. It just is. So we do appreciate it. Mayor Munson is on now. So do you have a report you wanted to share?
Hey, so I'll try and keep it super brief since I can't. I'm driving. So I just went to the league conference last week. It was really good. We were awarded the Healthy Utah Award. I gave that to Dave, and so he should be able to give everyone that. Other than that, I was in meetings today, classes for the league. I'll keep it at that since I'm traveling and probably will lose y'all in any minute.
Okay, thank you.
So the Get Healthy Utah Award that he mentioned, since it was something that the mayor specifically pushed, we received an award, but I'm going to bring it the next city council meeting to do like the formal presentation of it.
Okay.
I thought you might appreciate being here for that. So.
Okay, does anyone from city council have anything to report?
No.
Awesome. All right. Dave Johnson.
Okay, so I do have several things to report. There's the standard updates in the packet. But I'm not going to dive into this since that's spelled out there. To start with, I'm going to invite Michael Sanders. He's with the BYU Masters of Public Administration program at Brigham Young University. They did a case study kind of looking at Blanding City and what are different approaches for economic development that we could do. They have some recommendations. I just wanted to give them, Michael, 3 to 5 minutes to just kind of walk through some of the recommended approaches that they made in their effort. Go from there. Turn it over to you, Michael.
Thanks, David. Do I have screen sharing abilities here?
Potentially. Let's find out.
Let's see if I can here.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, maybe if I'm can get promoted to a panelist or.
Yeah, let me see if
Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, looks like I'm disabled.
All right, let's see what we can do. Just a second.
All right. If not, that's okay. I can just give it verbally real quick.
Let's see. It's not from right here. It's not letting me. I'm sorry, Mike.
All right, that's okay. I'll just give it verbally. All right. Well, thank you very much, City Council, for having me over this evening. It's a pleasure to come and present to you guys. My wife's father's from Blanding, so we've been down there a couple of times. We really like it there. So that's why we approached David to do a little case study for you guys regarding your economic development strategies. And first off, I just wanted to go over a little bit of background on Blanding. So as you guys know, you guys have a population of about 3,700 people, and the 20-mile stretch around Blanding, kind of the outlying areas, gets the population about to 11,500 people. And that's a pretty good size, but there are 250,000 tourists that drive through Blanding every year, because you guys, you're the base camp to adventure, right? So you guys are about 30 minutes to an hour drive from 12 national, state parks and monuments. So you guys really are like a hub for a lot of travelers in southern Utah. And you guys have two main businesses there. You guys have the big Ace Hardware store, and you guys have your big grocery store. But you guys are about 123 to 269 miles away from any sort of big sort of department store where you could get like home goods or clothing and things of that nature. So we just want to do a little report on how you guys could potentially incentivize some sort of business to come into your community to provide that service for both the Blanding citizens and also the people who are coming through visiting your city. And I just want to go through a couple of things to keep in mind as you guys go through and make this decision. You guys obviously need to keep the citizens in mind. What do they want? What do they need? You need to figure out what the city government, you guys as the decision makers, what you guys would eventually approve of. And also need to think of the potential developers and business owners, what would be in it for them for any kind of decision. But before you guys even start thinking about incentivizing some sort of business to come into the city, you need to kind of lay the groundwork. And as you guys do that, there are three main ways you can do that. You need to make sure that your leadership and your civic and public policies are really good. You guys need to have good administrative policies. You guys need to be united as a council and as a community on what you guys want to come into your city. You guys need to make sure that the quality of life, your workforce, and the infrastructure there in Blanding is strong, that you guys are a good area for any business to want to come. They're going to want to come to a place that is vibrant and that is growing and that has a lot of potential for them. And most important of all, you guys want to make sure that your existing businesses, the small business owners that are already there and your entrepreneurs are already strong. Because if they're not strong, there's no way that a big corporation or an outside influence would be able to come in and survive as well. So you really need to focus on your existing businesses and the entrepreneurs there in Blanding. Now I'm just going to go over the three types of rural incentives that are popular that rural Utah tends to use to be able to get some sort of business to come into their city. So the first one is called a commercial development agreement. And that essentially means that a business will voluntarily contract with the city to be able to meet the city needs. The city officials like the planning commission and the economic development team, they're going to talk about the rules for the product development, regulations, commitments, and financing. So it's kind of like a team effort between the business and the city. The second one would be a tax deferment. That would be where the city would potentially provide a building or some sort of space that the company would be able to come into, and they wouldn't have to pay some sort of property taxes for some a determined amount of time by the governing body. And the last one would just be dedicated city, state, or federal funding. That's just a way that any one of those levels of government would directly provide funding to the business to cover costs such as their business surveys, site visits, their marketing campaigns, any redevelopment effort that would potentially take place, or workforce development training. We wrote a report and gave it to David and the economic development director, Pratt, and it kind of goes over those a little bit more. And those are just kind of laying the groundwork for a couple of potential ideas for you guys to look at to potentially get some sort of good business to come in to service the citizens of Blanding and make you guys better than you guys already are. But yeah, I think that's all I have time for right now. Dave, if I'm right, you said 3 to 5 minutes, so I could just take a couple of quick questions or comments from the council.
That's perfect. Thanks, Michael. Does council have any questions?
No, we appreciate you doing that. That's, I think these are all things we've considered in the past, so it's good to hear it from someone else. Who's your wife's dad?
His name's Kent Lyman.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Way to make that connection there. Now you're in.
Now I'm in.
The
I
connection-
graduate next April, so hopefully there's a position for me there at the city.
Well, budget's coming up, so we'll see.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll try to be brief with my other council updates. First of all, just a reminder, council, about the workshop meeting on Saturday morning at 8. Be there or be square.
Workshop?
Work
Or work session.
Work session, sorry, workshop. It's the same thing.
Can you
Santa's
teach us
workshop.
something?
This is the council's workshop, essentially. The wellness center. So great news. The architect that's been working on the design for the shower portion, he got the very specific measurements and determined that the requirement by the state is actually only 4 showers. But the issue was, without adding an addition to the building, he can only fit in 3 showers per gender to meet all the ADA requirements. So I talked with the county health director, and he sent me today a letter verifying his approval to allow us to retrofit the wellness center with only 3 indoor showers per gender. So that's going to be a huge cost savings from where we started thinking we needed 7. Now down to 3.
That's a lot more sense to me.
Yes, and it makes a huge difference. And that was one of the things that I mentioned from the beginning was even before I was aware of kind of this issue all came up. When I first went to the wellness center, I thought we have a lot of changing stalls. And so when this issue came up, that was the first thought was, let's convert some of these changing stalls to showers. And luckily that's what they've been able to do. So now the next step is he's going to find out from some of his subs in doing the design work, how much longer for like the plumbing and stuff, how much longer it'll take to finish the architectural design. He doesn't know yet. He should know by next week when we'll have the architectural design. Then the next step would be to get all the design work done for the fire suppression system. And both of those will give us way more specific and accurate cost estimates for actual construction. And then from there, we'll bring those cost estimates to the city council for you to determine how and when you would like to fund those retrofits, if that makes sense. So this is the first step.
But you'll have a placeholder in the budget on Saturday, right? So we have at least some idea.
Right. I mean, we can put in a placeholder. We haven't put in the placeholder, but it would, the placeholder would be all savings. That's what the placeholder would be right now, because right now we have no other funding options. So that's kind of what we wanted to discuss in that meeting was,
Okay.
do you want us as a body to put in say our savings as that placeholder, or maybe there's some other ways to go about it to discuss. So
You were committed 3 council meetings ago that you were going to find funding. So if you're looking for grants, you better look for grants for this project above any other project.
yes, we are definitely looking for grants. We have been.
You've tried to pass, to us, you tried to pass that just now. Your responsibility is to find that funding.
Yes, we're searching for other funding options, but my point was taking it to the city council to get further direction on how we want to go with all of that. So, and I'll be quite frank, in the 3 weeks that we last discussed
That would
about
be
it,
6 weeks between council meetings.
or that's what I'm referring to, in those weeks since those meetings, I mean, we haven't had any silver bullets of funding come available. So, but it is on the CIB list request there. That is one of the areas that we've requested that funding. So we're still looking. And so that's kind of what we need to dive in a little more in the discussion. So last but not least, per the request of the mayor and the council, we set up a meeting with the elections office from the county to have a polling location here. They agree that we should have a polling location here. There's a couple restraints that they are having to work through. But given those restraints, they've come up with a plan that I'll share with you now. And then hopefully we can see a polling location at every election coming forward. So one of the main constraints when there's a countywide or even state or nationwide elections is per that judge's ruling, they are required to have polling machines at specific locations, and they are limited on how many polling machines they have and how many staff members they have. And with all those required locations, they don't have enough to be here day of. this coming election. However, what they will do is they will have those machines here the Monday before and 3 weeks prior to that, every Monday, every week, and they'll still have a drop box the day of. Now, on the years where we have elections just in Blanding City, moving forward, they will always have a polling location here with the machine. And what they need to do now moving forward is they need to try to budget to get more of those polling machines so that they can have one here too. One of the issues is they just got a requirement from the Justice Department to also include another polling machine down at White Mesa. One of the recommendations I made to them was, given the proximity of White Mesa, perhaps you could speak with the Justice Department of identifying the Ute and Navajo populations within the proximity of Blanding and see if maybe they will allow for that location to be here in Blanding because it's so close here and it'll serve a wider population of both Ute and Navajo, given those legal constraints that they have. They said that's something they'll talk to the Justice Department about, but unfortunately, a lot of times the Justice Department is more about giving direction than taking feedback. So that's one of the things they have to work through. So
Would our citizens be allowed to go to, if they do a polling location in White Mesa, would they be allowed to go use that polling location?
I don't see why they wouldn't. I'd have to ask, because a lot of times, depending on where you live, identifies the polling location that you have to go to if you're voting on day of. So we'd have to find out because they were still working through the nuances of the White Mesa polling location, if that makes sense. So it's not 100% what the mayor and council is looking for, but it is an honest and concerted step forward, trying to problem solve with the constraints that they have to work with. And see if we get more updates as the ensuing months come. And we'll all.
So the Monday before would technically be the day before, correct?
Yes, the
Okay,
day
that's-
before.
That's actually positive because people started thinking about their voting about that.
I
time
asked
frame.
them to hold it on Monday for that
Okay.
reason, yeah.
And I think 3 weeks before, as long as we do our education of when, what times and where to go, I think that could be actually positive as well. And I appreciate them working with us to not disenfranchise our voters. I think that's good, that don't want to use mail-in ballots. So the plan is that they're going to budget for another machine that I understand is expensive.
That's what they would have to do, but you know how the budgets goes. There's no guarantees. So that's not a request.
With a little machine that sucks in the,
Yeah,
is that what it is?
it's the polling machine. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
But they're hoping to budget one so that we can have one in Blanding, just like every other city and town in this.
I also
county is
recommended
getting.
them potentially enacting a policy of where polling machines are held at any location of a certain population or higher, because they were worried about if they did a polling machine here, then everybody would start requesting. I said, well, if you did a policy where you did a population of a certain population and higher, plus any other areas that they're legally bound to hold it to, then it won't open the can of worms of requests from every area, and they'll still be able to fulfill the legal requirements that they have of the other areas. So that's just something I pitched out to them. Who knows if that'll gain any kind of traction, but.
Well, we used to have 3 or 4 polling locations here in Blanding specifically, and we're asking for 1, so it doesn't seem. So his concern is if we ask for 1, we're then going to ask for 3 or 4 in the
No, that
future.
everybody else.
No,
like
that
Spanish
everybody else in the
Valley.
county will
Oh.
want one in their area. And so if they did something like that, it would be wise for them to set up a policy that kind of prevents the can of worms on, helps them meet their legal requirements, but also prevents the can of
I
worms
just
of getting requested everywhere. So.
I think that's just a way of getting out of it when they say that, though.
Yeah, I can only communicate what was shared.
I know.
Translator's not an issue though, that's not a requirement.
They didn't really address that directly when we were talking about it. So I'm not sure, because they said that if they have a polling location here on the day of, that they would be here. Like next year, for example, it will be just the city. And so they would have a polling location with their staff and meeting whatever needs. That's kind of how they responded to it. They didn't respond to the translator portion directly.
Okay.
So, and that's not to say that they were avoiding that, but that's the response that they gave for the time being. So As far as my updates, that is all I have on project status updates. And then you'll be hearing lots of more fun updates from me on the discussion items. So,
All right, Kim, let's talk finance.
Yay, finally.
It's so fun.
Let's talk about money. Do you have any questions?
So let's talk about
the-
Excel spreadsheets.
Yes, no, let's not.
Okay.
My eyes are cross-eyed today. Do you have any questions on the invoice register?
No, appreciate you.
Yeah, but I appreciate seeing it in here every meeting. I
Yeah.
really do. And the public, for the public too.
Exactly. The second item I have on there is we did receive back our natural gas cost of service study, came back very positive. We will be discussing that in greater length at the, I hope at the May 10th meeting. I just got the final report from them and I want to be able to share that with you, so I don't want to go into too much detail. I can tell you that they were very impressed with how we've been running the company over the past 30 years. I'll look at Kelly, 30 years. They've recommended very few adjustments. We looked at keeping revenue level. It means that the cost to the customer would stay the same. We may have to restructure some of our customer charges and reduce the rate to keep things balanced there, because there was no appetite for increasing any revenue. And based on what they were looking at, they were very positive, and I was pretty excited to have some confirmation on what we've been doing over the last 30 years. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, I guess I'll see you on Saturday morning. I hope to have the budget printed. We're having some issues with our copy machine, and I'm frantically trying to pull some stuff together. So hopefully I'll be able to let you know that they'll be ready for you on Thursday. I apologize, that's not much time for you to review it, but doing the best I can.
That's all you can do.
Well, I need to do more.
Kim was doubling as a Xerox technician today, unfortunately, so.
Maybe we need a new Xerox in the budgets. I know they're wicked expensive though.
We've got parts.
I just add that to my job description.
Okay.
Looks great.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim. All right, we're down to discussion item number 1, airport administration policy and ordinance.
Okay, so I'll try to walk through what I've got very quickly. First of all, I need to preface the whole airport discussion. Well, 2 things. 1, I really appreciate everybody coming out. I've been trying, hopefully everybody's been getting the emails that I've been sending out to the hangar tenants, trying to invite them to give feedback. So I appreciate that. 2, the big disclaimer is none of this stuff brought before you as the council has been anything set in stone. This is only to give you information, to discuss, to see how a potential administrative policy can look. Now, the ordinance, in speaking with Chris and several others in general, nobody seems to really have any issues with the implementing an ordinance with more detail on the growth and guiding the airport. One item that a few of the individuals in public comment mentioned was having a committee. And that would be something we probably would want to establish by ordinance. And what it would be is likely an advisory committee. Now, the only downside to the committee, which, by the way, I have no problems with the committee, but some of the feedback in some of the airports that I spoke to was difficulty, or maybe not immediately, a lot of times when a committee is formed, but longevity over time, getting the diversity that you want in that type of board of experience. Sometimes is difficult filling those positions. Sometimes it leads to the same people sitting on the board or the committee for, years and years, rather than kind of mixing it and getting different perspectives from other professionals in the field. That's the only con. I'm not saying that, and just so everybody knows, I'm not saying that against it, because I actually think a committee is probably a really good idea. So I'm just wanting the council to know that portion. What I did was I had conversations with, I don't know how many are here, probably, well, I had conversations, if you look on page 17 of the packet, I had probably over somewhere between 30 to 40 hours of conversations just about airport rates. Calling multiple FBOs, multiple airport managers, and clearly that time spent pales in comparison to those sitting in this room in the airport industry. But what I did is I gathered together a variety of rates, and I'm just going to talk through a few highlights. One, Landing City, one of the comments was that pilots are looking for the nicest and the cheapest. Well, I can say we're the cheapest. And as many other comments made, we're definitely not the nicest. And the maintenance issues have been because a lack of funds. In fact, so much so that there is zero payroll, even though our airport manager spends several hours a week, zero payroll is taken to help pay for that salary. In fact, the streets department often has to go fill potholes and help supplement. So we're taking money from other general fund to help supplement needs in the city. And the only reason why we really are having, and they're right, that we have seen positive increases over the last couple of years. Freedom Fuels has done an excellent job in doing that. Matter of fact, the Avgas regional manager had just great things to say about the progress that has been made. And I think everybody agrees with that. And so, but the only reason why we've been able to make improvements is because of the hail damage. Yes, there's been some damage over the years, but the adjuster agreed that the hail damage was kind of like the last straw.
So it's my understanding that the little money that we bring in with hangar rentals is what we have to use as a match when we go after big FAA things, like improving things, correct?
Do you have a better? You might be.
What we've done is we've taken the fuel flowage
Okay.
and some other funding, and I've been tracking that on a spreadsheet. So if we have to use it as match, we have those numbers. Prior to that, the revenue's just been going into the savings in the general fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
And we do use that as a match, which is when we get those grants, and you bet if I get this wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I need to clarify a few things.
When we get those grants, the state takes a portion, we split it 50-50 with the state, then we get our portion and we split it 50-50 with the county. And you'll see that in more detail in the budget on
Okay.
Saturday, how we kind of split those out.
In the last few years, with the exception of this year, we haven't necessarily been getting 50-50 funding from the county to help support those things. The cities.
Well, sorry, Dave, but
Oh,
since 2020, we haven't had to pay a match because that's all been coming at 100% through the CARES Act
that's
and
true.
through our.
That's a good point. So,
Okay.
but we did receive that match this year from the county, correct? When we received our TRT funding.
Well, the match that we did receive was the match for the general maintenance stuff that we've been doing down there, like we did the fuel, the repair on the fuel, and they did match that 50% with us. So
Okay.
I invoice them every fall for their share of maintenance.
So
I have a question for Kim. How much is the annual income from the hangar rentals and the flowage?
Let me speak about the flowage fees are very specific. They can only be used on the fuel system down there. They can't be
Okay.
used for other things.
Then let's take that out. How much is the rental on these hangars that we have?
$100 a month.
1,200, that's what this says.
It's about $24,000 or $28,000 a year.
Plus the Guardian at
And
10?
then the Guardian on top of it, it comes to about 42, I think. Is what we
And you say this has been going into the general fund?
4,200,
budgeted.
42,000.
Okay. And that's increased these last couple of years, this last year with the.
Yeah, so what we discussed doing is setting up a capital account and moving that money into that.
For the maintenance needs that they've been
So
talking about.
technically, we cannot say we've been robbing from this to do this because all that money has been going from here to here.
Correct.
Yeah, we've been robbing the airport blind just because we had no account to put it in.
I wouldn't phrase it that way.
I would.
So
How else would you phrase it?
then what we would need to do then is take probably 25 to 30% of the airport manager's current salary and start allocating that toward the airport. So I don't disagree that it's kind of intermixed. And to me,
Who's the airport manager that we pay the salary? Is that,
it's Brett.
Right.
okay?
So my point in all of this, okay, is not that we need to rob the airport. That's not my point.
But that's what's been done for years. I went and looked at the hangar doors. They don't slide. They got straps hooked to them so they can use a vehicle to pull them open.
So I 100% agree. So what I'm trying to say is right now, there's no clear avenue for savings to maintenance the airport. And that's what Kim was talking about, is what we're trying to do in each department. There's not a clear savings for capital over the long term for each department. And that's been part of the problem. Now, the hangar rates, even though that's been kind of the controversy, honestly, that was really just more of an example to bring to the council for discussion of potential ways to increase revenues. It was never my intent or staff's intent to say, we absolutely have to increase hangar rates. Would it be a benefit? Sure. And so with that said, I just want to walk through some of the findings that I had, and then the council as a body can give us direction on maybe how you would like to move forward, whether that's you table it all together for the next 10 years or 2 weeks. That's fine. I'm just trying to present you information so I can get direction. So in those that I spoke with about the hangar rates, almost all of them, with the exception of Vernal, have other rates besides hangar rates, including tie down, ground lease, parking, landing, and flowage. Of the flowage fees, we make 4 cents per gallon. We are the second lowest. Several are at 5 cents per gallon. One's at 3 cents per gallon, and the rest are anywhere between 10 and 30 cents per gallon on the flowage fees. Now, I'm not saying any of this. I'm not saying increase flowage fees. The tie downs, they kind of were, there was a spectrum of tie down rates. Most of the FBOs and airport managers that I spoke with recommended the tie down rates so that you don't get individuals who have trailers or things there that just sit there for a long time. And most of them that I spoke with had a day rate, a monthly rate, and an annual rate. And you can see, I primarily posted either day or monthly rate here because you can kind of extrapolate the annual rate from that. Some did landing fees, some did parking fees, but the landing fees were almost always in the case of large aircraft. So who was it? It was, maybe I didn't add that on there. A lot of them were 1,000 pounds or over, or per 1,000 pounds after 8,000 pounds. So if an aircraft was 8,000 pounds, then they would charge a landing fee of $125 per 1,000 pounds after that because of the wear and tear, which is not a ton of aircrafts in an airport like ours, based on the FBOs and the airport manager I spoke to. The one area that I would actually move forward recommending, and in discussions with Chris Ewald and our FBO and others, and you guys can correct me if you disagree, but the
I want to
one.
correct you on one thing too.
Yeah.
Because our flowage fee is not 4 cents a gallon.
It's 9
What,
cents. a
is it
gallon.
9?
Yeah.
We only pay 4 cents a gallon on the 100 full lead, and 9, which is pretty standard,
Okay,
and 9
thanks,
cents
I
on the
appreciate
Jet A,
that.
which is very standard also. And
4 on the low end.
And
Okay.
most places pay 9 cents a gallon on their flowage
And that's
fees,
kind of
but
us.
they're also charging like 3 times on top of the cost what we are. So
Sure.
we're giving the city a bigger portion. Of
So
what we
it's
make
9 on
other
the app?
places. What?
It's
It's 9 on the Jet A, which is like
Jet A.
95% of all the fuel flowed on the airport.
Okay.
It's Jet A.
All right, great. I appreciate that. But the one rate that I would actually probably recommend doing is about future growth. And this is something that's been recommended by a lot of others. And in the airport master plan that's coming up, identifying areas where we can allow for private hangars, private developed hangars. And all of these airports, not all of them had a ground lease rate, but what I'm trying to say is all of these airports that had private hangars had a ground lease rate for the square footage of the building. And that's actually where a lot of their money came from. And I'm just kind of straw pulling. Is that something that the group kind of feels like would be a good avenue, good way to find additional revenues? So like I said, originally when we first brought this discussion, the hangar rate was only meant to be an example of an area of potential rates to discuss, and then we were going to go back and look at more. So that's kind of my findings. I don't know if there's questions moving forward.
Of the 17 airports listed here, how many of them are comparable size to Blandy?
Several of them I went based on recommendations from Chris Ewald and others. I didn't go and look at the population of every city. And you're right, there's some like Provo, that was recommended by Chris to look at.
I look here at Cedar, St. George, Spanish. I don't know where Mesa must be in Mesa, Price, Provo, Salt Lake, Tooele. I mean, all of these are like probably getting 3 times, 4 times the traffic that our little strip's going to get. Correct?
I can't speak to that.
So I don't see how this is comparing apples to apples.
This intent of this is not apples to apples. This is just to give you an idea of what others are doing.
Can I say something?
Oh yeah,
I came here to discuss the water situation, but I'm sitting here looking at you guys talk about this airport. I mean, I'm not really involved with that, but from where I'm sitting, Chris came up and told you guys of a bunch of different grants you guys can get to make this airport run. But you guys shut the grants idea down because you didn't want that yet.
So,
Bring up a
hang on.
shower.
I appreciate you wanting to contribute to this, but that's not actually how these meetings work. So, so thank you for your input. The input portion was during the public input part. So
Can I
that's
make
what
a
we're
comment
doing.
about that? Because I am not against, but that's how airports operate, is on federal grants. I'm not against federal grants.
Right.
We use them in a lot of areas in a lot of ways. I just wanted to hear if you had any other ideas on how to generate revenue other ways.
Perfect.
That's all my point was.
That's what I was asking.
So-
That's kind of what I was asking, because I was
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
clarify that. 'Cause
Yeah.
like I said, we're talking about getting grants for
Okay,
showers.
sorry. We need to stick to the agenda, or you will all be here till midnight.
So that's kind of the findings. One of the things that I did, if you look on page 18, just because Chris and I had spoken about, are there different ways if we need to increase hangar rates, and that's the direction the council wants to go, are there different ways to go about it? So, I just gave another example table of, if you did it up to $250 over the next 6 years, or maybe you only want to go up to $175 in 3 years and stop at 175. That's specific to the hangar rates. Otherwise, I kind of kept everything else the same for you to discuss.
Honestly, I think I'm more interested in figuring out policies first,
And then administrative.
and then we can worry about fees further down the road. I think that we need to be in a better place where we're managing the airport as a positive asset and a resource. It's good to talk about these things. It's good. I mean, just like you never expect a library to make money to cover its costs, I don't think that we can expect the airport to completely cover the costs. But if we haven't been using the funds that we've received to go back towards direct maintenance, that's a problem too. Yes, Kim.
I have the list here that Brett gave me of projects that we budgeted for 2023. And that's a total of $711,524. Of that, our portion would be $35,762, but we would bill the county for 50% of that. And if they pay, that's great. That's something that we struggle with getting. So so we are using a good share of the portion that
Okay.
we collect this year towards that. So
Okay,
Yeah, I just couldn't respond to that because I
That's
don't know
helpful.
the numbers off the top of my head.
From a finance standpoint, I think it would be to change this way that it's been done for years and to set up an airport revenue account to put those funds into. I can't speak to why it's the way it is now,
Right.
but
Okay.
it's something that I've been looking at.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Well,
I move that we table this until a later
well,
date.
this
when
isn't a
we have
motion,
more
this is just
information.
advice
Oh,
and
we're
consent
just-
during
we're just-
discussion. I just need advice and consent from the council on how to move forward,
Sure, yeah.
so.
Discussion item.
I do think it's a fair, whenever I remember seeing information about the dollars for the airport, it always seems like that money was being held somewhere for a match for federal grants. And there was a certain amount in there every year when we discussed the budget, this came up. So I do think it's a valid discussion of why is this money not going back into maintenance on those hangars? Because it sounds to me like there's money. And I always thought there was not because it was being held into a
So do you want to
a
identify
reserve
some
of
of
some
the
kind.
projects that are in that from the list that you gave you?
Well, these are, Brad, these are projects that are being designed by the airport consultants, correct?
Yeah, that's our FAA Capital Improvements
So
project list.
Brett, will you quickly speak to some of the capital costs that we had to deal with this year and some of the other ones that were more pressing that we're needing to deal with, which is why some of the hangar maintenance hasn't happened. And this is just an example from this year.
So there's a whole continuum of things that need to happen down there, but we spent $3,000 on the fuel truck and got it fixed up. So the brakes and stuff worked on it. We felt that was important because people have multi-million-dollar planes that they want to be fueled up and they don't want the fuel truck running into it. So we spent a bunch of money with the county on that. Our two beat up old cars that we have down there for, what do you call them, Dave?
Courtesy
Courtesy cars come into the city. We had flat tires, we had problems, we had to fix some brakes. So we spent another bunch of money on that. We've spent money because before the city manager, myself, as the airport manager, came to the city council and talked about it, FBO. The city council at that time gave us direction. They wanted us to try to go private. And these guys have stepped up to the plate. And so we were trying to make an effort to help support them for them to be successful. Because I think if you talk about people like David that's been there for a long time, we want the FBO to be there for a long time because they provide good, consistent service and stuff like that. So we've done that. We were looking at clearing the sagebrush off that whole airport. And that project was about a $7,500 project that our street department, like Dave said, came in and absorbed that cost for going down there and mowing down all the big rabbit brush and everything to make the airport so it wouldn't hide deer, because the deer go over to Ivans's fields because they do such a good job at farming when they have water that the deer like to migrate back and forth.
So it sounds to me like we need to make this more of a discussion item during our budget meetings to find out how much money there is to do maintenance on those hangars.
Yeah, that's part of it. So kind of actually just kind of hearing, I'm taking the collective comments so far. I'm almost hearing maybe what we should do is first, maybe staff should bring you an updated version of.
Hold on just 1 second. Let me just finish my comment. So we need to have a concerted discussion, Kim, in the budget meeting about hangar maintenance and how much money there is. But you're saying we'll create an account so that we can see that money separate from the general fund, correct?
Yeah, right now I'm just looking through some old budgets and it looks like we are spending pretty close to what we're bringing in now.
That's what I remember.
That may be why we haven't seen an account set up for just the savings.
Because there hasn't been enough.
Because that drives this discussion about bringing in more revenue.
Yes,
If we
it is.
don't have enough money to do maintenance on the hangars, which is what I thought was driving this entire discussion. So we'll have to have that discussion during our
We've done
budget
other
meeting.
things, like we bought a snowplow because the business down there
Right.
was not getting a fast enough response from the county, who has the responsibility to plow the airport for us. So we went up and bought a snowplow. We got a real good price on it, but it still cost 12 grand. The county was supposed to pay half of that. They welched on that. They didn't do it. So the city had to eat all that cost. So we had to take money out of savings to do that. And, you know, there's a lot of costs. The windsock has been blown over twice. The fuel farm went down. And
Okay.
there's a lot of moving parts at the airport.
No, I completely agree. I just, you know, whether or not we have money to maintain, part of this discussion is, we want our hangars to be well maintained. I mean, we're also looking out for those of you who are out there in the audience as well, because we want our hangars to be well maintained so that you can operate and do what you need to do inside those hangars. And we don't have money to maintain the hangars like we need to. So that was part of what started this whole discussion. Personally, I don't disagree. I think if having a committee, and I completely agree that part of the problem with committees is that they start out great and then they die off. And that may be why there's not one anymore. I don't know, but I think we probably should have an airport advisory committee, especially if there's people here willing to serve on it. And if that needs to be done through an ordinance, I would be surprised if there's not already one out there.
You mean,
An ordinance.
It needs to be
committee.
done through ordinance?
well, so that it can be done through ordinance, and I'm gonna look and see, I think some establish it through just administrative policy. So that's what I need to look at, because I hadn't really looked at that portion when putting together the ordinance.
Because I would like to have information from those in the audience and those who care about our airport too, as we make these policies and as we look at fees, and so they understand why we need more revenue, because they're looking at going, just like I heard, we're bringing in $42,000 a year. Where's that money going? You know, that committee needs to be a part of that, and I think it would be positive. And so I would recommend we do what Eric said and delay it until we can put together an advisory committee.
More information.
Yeah.
So my question to the council though is, I'm hearing delaying implementing rates. Is staff, do I have advice and consent to continue moving forward in drafting an ordinance to bring forward?
My advice and consent would be, let's create an advisory committee for ordinances.
So probably what I would need to do is research the different ways to form those committees, and then bring that to council and see if council wants to form, if it's.
I swear we used to
Brett,
have
there
one,
used to be an
and
advisory
someone
committee.
from
I know
city
because we
council
were
has
on it.
served on it.
Eagle or
Yeah,
Med
there
was
was an
also on it.
advisory committee for a long time.
Right,
So that we don't need a new policy to create an advisory committee.
we don't have a policy is the thing, is I think it was just done before and there was no policy guiding it, whether ordinance or administrative policy. There is not an existing policy.
I think a big part of why we were moving forward, even doing ordinances, was because we felt like it was needed for a specific business that was needing things. And that now has worked itself out. And so I don't know that we're in as much of a hurry for ordinances as we were.
Well,
but maybe
kind of yes and no, because yes, that business kind of instigated that instigated some things, but what it also identified is right now we're updating our airport master plan, but we have no ordinance to support that master plan. And so while there's not an immediate rush to do it, I would say it's probably good that we start working on and researching getting an ordinance in place. Now, does it have to come to you next week? No, but probably by the fall, at least, we should probably have something to you to be able to discuss further. So I guess that's my question, council. I'm hearing that you want to.
To some degree, you could move forward with an ordinance, but I think that it just would be beneficial to let since most of the consensus around the table is that we would like a governing board. I mean, that's been great advice that I think that's been given. And so it feels like that they should have some say in what the ordinances look like. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to recommend is
in the ordinance. Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm trying to recommend is that staff come back to you with different ways in which the committee could be formed.
That's fine, but it should be a priority to make that happen sooner than later. Like that needs to be, this is just me, but I think that needs to be the focus. And then the ordinances, and then the fees.
I agree.
Okay.
Do you have a comment, Mr. Hosmer?
About the airport?
The advisory committee.
The advisory committee?
We used to have an advisory committee. My dad sat on it for a number of years.
I sat on it one point in
Yeah,
time.
there's just, there's no policy. So before,
I want to listen to what Mr. Ewald has to say.
Here's a perfect example of why you need an airport advisory committee, and the sooner the better. Talking about the utilization of money in that airport compliance manual I was talking about. Utilization of airport revenue. Your obligation is to use all airport revenues for capital or operating costs of the airport. There's a lot
And just to-
more little details.
We've been
on
doing
that
that.
point,
It's
to
just
clarify
not
from what Councilmember Grover was saying is, we have been, I just couldn't tell you every little.
We have
thing.
no documentation or proof though. It needs its own space.
We do. According to our finance director, we
And I-
do.
But still,
And Kim,
we around this table know, the finance knows, the front office knows. But Joe coming down from the FAA is gonna say,
Actually, we would just show them our finances and the audit.
but still,
So
would it not look better if it had its own deal?
I don't disagree. So with that said, I've got the consent from the council to look at how to form a committee. Lastly, I just want to actually really say thank you to everybody regarding the airport. I mean, all your input has been invaluable, so I appreciate it. I'm sorry it has probably stressed you out. But the intent was only really to create discussion about.
it stressed us out too.
Yeah,
So you
the
know.
intent was really only to create discussion on addressing the very concerns that you guys have brought up about the airport, so I appreciate it.
And you are welcome to stay if you want to leave while we discuss the other fun stuff. You're good either way. So we are now on to raw water sale. Dave Johnson.
Yeah, so our public works director and city engineer was hoping that this discussion would happen when he could be here, but he's out of town. I will speak very briefly on this in the sense that I haven't been heavily involved. The main, if you guys remember last summer, fall, this was before Councilmember Grover, Councilmember Gosser were on, the mill approached me about the sale of 150 acre feet that they do every year. And I had a lot of concern with that because of exact concerns that that Mr. Laws and Mr. Holiday had brought up, was that historically that sale has never gone before the city council, and that really concerned me. And at that time, I told the council that what staff wanted to do was look at forming a policy that had a process of doesn't need to go to the council. So similar, when I first got here, there wasn't a formal policy on the spending cap for a city manager and for department heads. And that was one of the first things that I implemented, because I never wanted there to be a question about spending limits, okay? And so I had a similar concern. I guess my time's up. So I had a similar concern back then about raw water sales. So we have a tier system for culinary water based on use and based on supply. But what we didn't have of raw water sales to outside city limits was any kind of policy or system there. And so what I had told the council at that time was, my concern was we would be approached by another entity that wanted us to sell them raw water at the same rate as the mill. And just the staff and I, the finance department and the public works department and I, prior to the Conservancy District approaching us, had been talking about now starting to put together a policy to bring to you after the budget is done. Unfortunately, we got that request before we could come up with a drafted policy. So what I'm trying to say is staff is actually not in disagreement with the heartache that's been expressed here and the frustration, but because we don't have a policy in place and we have a precedence of it not going before the council to approve that, we didn't really have grounds to say no if we had some capacity. Now, Terry has spoken to the capacity, and I am not the technical expert on this. I just looked at the higher level precedents of, we've been selling 150 acre feet to the mill for the last who knows how many years, and they've decreased some of that over the years. Terry's explanation to me, and my understanding, our public works director, was that the amount of acre feet that we had, that 10 acre feet request, which is about 3 million gallons, would be lost through seepage, evaporation, and other means. And that he spoke with our water operator superintendent to see, do we have enough capacity? And this conversation actually happened before we brought the culinary rates to you to approve to increase the rate. So some of this discussion was had. What's that?
It's not a rate increase.
Well, I'm sorry, not the rate increase. This changed from yellow to orange. Thank you.
So I think that it's important that we talk about that though.
I agree.
The rate structure that we currently utilize is not intended to raise rates for people. It is intended to help people conserve. And the reason that we went to that as a city council is due to a study that we did that indicates, the data shows that when you penalize people for watering during a drought,
beyond what they should be,
they still do it. That's and we have no way of policing
You can't water on
that.
Friday, or you can't water
Right.
at this time.
That does not work to conserve water. But by telling people, if you use the same amount of water this year that you used last year, it's going to cost you this much more, actually has an impact. So we are trying to remain revenue neutral with our water rates. We just moved to that to try to keep people to try to encourage people to conserve in the way that they understand, I guess. I'm not
Well,
sure.
It's like the fuel business. If my fuel prices go up, people that want to drive are gonna drive. People that don't want to drive are gonna quit driving because they don't want to pay the price. It's the
Right.
same principle.
Right. That's what that is. But so we don't apply that same water rate to our culinary water.
that
We
was
don't-
the concern.
we
that
don't-
That's the
It's
concern.
raw water.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Raw
culinary, you're right.
I'm sorry, not raw water, but
Raw water.
irrigation.
Yeah, it's raw.
Raw water, but it
What is
isn't
it called?
So Mayor Pro Tem, that's the exact clarification we need to make, first of all, and the premise of my concern last fall, when we first started talking about this, was that culinary is different than raw because of the treatment process and the costs involved with that, which were highlighted. But B is we have a very excellent policy. I would venture to say, I mean, in my city managers conference and the League of Cities and Towns conference, the whole discussion was water, water, water. And guess what? Landing City by far had the best process in place for our culinary water, our rates, to keep rates down, but also incentivize low usage. But the problem the problem that we do have has to do with raw water. We don't have a policy like that, and we need to form one.
I'm confused by that though, because last year we decided that we needed to establish our red, yellow.
That's for treated
That's
water.
treated
coming through
water.
the system.
But no, we decided we needed to do that before the agreement to sell the water to White Mesa.
No, to the mill. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
that was the idea, is so that renewal of that contract is coming up the end of summer, fall. And as soon as the budget was done, we were going to start
Oh,
putting
so
together that policy.
did we already commit that last
We did, yeah.
October at the beginning of the water year then?
So, yeah, we
Okay.
agreed to it last year. And so
I'm
we were.
sorry,
gonna form
calendar
the
years
policy.
and all of that. Okay,
Do you mind if I?
no.
Yeah,
Please.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about, we have the culinary allocations, and we do have allocations for the people like
Flood and irrigation shares,
um,
recapture.
those that are getting untreated water to their homes and through taps, but what we don't have is for like the mill and
Outside city limits,
commercial
commercial use.
raw water users.
We have it for residential, but not the outside city
Oh,
limit commercial.
okay.
So with the raw water ones that maybe go to, at least I'm gonna use you as an example, that go to Lisa, those are at 75% of culinary rate on the rate, but the allocation would stay the same.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what we need to get in place. And thank you for clarifying that. I apologize. I didn't clarify that it's commercial versus the residential, because we do have the residential rates in place for raw water. Yeah.
And none of this spring runoff has gone into recapture. Is that correct, Tyson?
Correct. That's correct.
I can't speak to that. I'm not the
I
technical
just got the
expert.
answer for it.
Can I, you want to know where it went?
I do.
So we decided as the Blanding Irrigation Company, that the water, we could not allocate because the city claimed that we could not store it, which is an agreement passed in the third reservoir. However, if we ran any storage water into the third, they were gonna, I believe the word was impound our water within 24 hours if we stored it.
That's the law.
So me and Shane came together with an idea that we were gonna run the water into Shane Shumway's pond. And we were gonna see how much water there was, because the city went on to decide by themselves, out of two people, decided that they were not gonna buy this water. Because in their mind, guessing that if it goes to recapture, we have to fill up so much to get to the conservation level. So you guys are gonna get that. And if it went to the third, confiscated it, if we didn't use it, you guys are gonna get that. So
Can I
Shane ended up
clarify
taking,
that real
Shane
quick?
ended up taking the water.
That needs to be clarified very much so.
Please do.
So the $300 rate that you had mentioned earlier that you wanted to sell us the water at is significantly more than what it would cost us to pump. So in my discussions with our public works director, I said if they can at least bring it down to the level of what it costs us to pump or lower, I would be happy to consider that. But if they're unwilling to bring it down to that rate, then that's not something that I think we should consider.
What is the pumping
Water up
cost?
here in the desert?
I was something, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was something
55.
How much?
50 or 55 is what.
An acre foot?
Yes.
for us to pump. So $300.
So 3 acre feet would cost $165?
No.
I'm not gonna speculate on that.
You own 27 to 30% of that water, so your price would be down to around $200 an acre foot.
Yeah, and what I recall in my discussions with the public works director was that it was somewhere in the $100 to $200 range that it costs us to pump. But again, I'm not the technical expert and he is not here to speak to that.
So-
Let me tell you my issues. Number one, we live in a desert. Number two, the water this year was limited. Number three, the irrigators chose to sell their water. You guys turned them down. And then you went and sold water. That's where this, I believe, the majority of this conversation is coming from. As we sold water after we turned down the opportunity to buy how many acre feet?
That's what we didn't know due to
But
not being able. to
what has
store
it come to today, do you know?
I believe we're probably pushing, there's probably close to 20 acre feet in dry wash right now. Shane's pond stored roughly 30, so we're around probably anywhere from 50 to 70 acre feet of water, I imagine.
And what would that do to our reservoirs right now if that water was in our ponds, not having to run a pump with maintenance, not having to run a power bill?
Not having to run it down a ditch. and
Not,
evaporation.
yeah, not drying it out down the ditch.
Again, I can't speak to that. I'm not the technical expert on that.
So why was this item brought on?
So I put
here?
this item on the agenda and I'm not quite sure why my name's not on here. I probably should have made that
Oh,
adjustment. at the
I
beginning of the meeting.
apologize.
No, it's a good
It's an
discussion.
oversight.
The reason it's on the agenda is because I wanted to have a discussion. One, I wanted to hear a little bit of how this all happened and I wanted to get Eric's thoughts, but I also wanted to have a discussion about whether water should be. First of all, let me say, I do not believe water should be bought or sold without it going through city council. We are the people that are responsible to our citizens. And I don't think that decision is a decision that should be made lightly. I think that way, if we could stand up today and say, we told them not to buy that water, this would be a much easier discussion for all of us because there'd be a reason we told them not to buy the water. But as it stands right now, all we know is that they didn't buy water that they had the opportunity to buy and we weren't even involved in that decision. So the reason I put on the agenda was so that we could have a discussion whether water should be bought and sold without it going through city council, because I don't believe it should.
I
That's my take.
actually agree with that, which is why I mentioned that last fall.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
So as the city administrator, I
I'm
actually
upset
agree.
that it all happened. We don't have any idea that any of this was going on behind the scenes.
So
And we're the
and
ones,
that's why,
we're the ones that have to be responsible. to
and
the
that's why I
people. They
gave the
can vote us out.
comparison. Sorry, that's why I gave.
Point of order, because it's difficult for me to hear when you're talking over each other. So if we can just, let people say what they want before being interrupted or talking over, that will help me with the.
Thank you.
So that's why I mentioned the comparison to spending limits with the city manager and department heads at the beginning, because I think we need to figure out some sort of structure with the purchase and sale of water as well. What is administratively able to do versus what then needs to trigger to come to the council. And then secondarily, what we discussed last fall about coming up with a rate for the commercial raw water.
Okay, so
sales.
you are saying that we do have policies for culinary water
And residential raw water.
and, okay, and residential raw water. But the real issue and the one that has
That's the discussion.
come here is that we don't have one for commercial.
Commercial raw water.
And I guess I'm kind of confused why it needed to happen so fast too.
I have.
Because
no-
everything else we do it slowly, you know, like we take forever to draft an airport policy. And we table it again and table it again. So I guess I don't understand why it had to happen so quickly.
I'm gonna be 100% honest, and I'm trying to say this delicately. When I said, let's move forward with it, I actually thought we were gonna bring it to the council.
Okay.
So
I believe there was a policy in with the original mill contract, and the mill has not drawn any water on low water years.
Again, point of order, I cannot hear Councilmember Eric Rober. Would you please start over?
I say, I believe there's a policy that was the original contract that Blanding City had with the mill when they first obtained the 800 acre feet that they own in recapture, and that they don't draw water on low years, they pump their wells.
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
Well, and I also remember having a discussion when we bought our last round of water rights, having a discussion that we do not sell water. And so I assumed, sorry, Mr. Turk's back there shaking his head because he agrees with me, he was here. We do not sell water. And so when this all came up again, I got to be honest, I was surprised. There was a water sale happening that we did not know about.
Yeah.
This is kind of important because.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Hang on.
So, yeah, I don't disagree. So what we need to do is staff needs to come back to you with a recommended policy for both the sale and purchase of water, as well as a recommended policy with the sale of commercial raw water.
Okay, I think that's
Do
appropriate.
I have advice and consent, I guess?
Yes.
When I say we don't sell water, I mean, we don't sell water without approval of the council.
So
There is a time.
in defense of staff, there is a precedence of having done this. And there isn't a formal policy in place.
There is not,
There
I'm sorry.
is not a formal policy in place.
Okay,
So,
Need to fix that.
so that's
Go back
why I
sections.
think we need to come forth and start bringing policies. And I appreciate those who came to speak their concerns about it. There was no, one thing I want to make clear on the record is there was no ill intent. Some of the rationale behind it was, for example, some of the priorities of the council have been to help local businesses and development. And we knew that this would benefit some of those local businesses that needed water for some of the projects that are going on in the city. So there really was no ill intent. The idea was trying to help move things along. But, and again, I wasn't trying to throw staff under the bus by saying that I thought this was going to come to council, but I was thinking we were going to take this to council as an item too. So it is what it
And I don't want to create further, but I am interested to know if Holiday got any of the water. Holiday Construction. Did you get any of the water for your gravel pits?
In conversations that I've had with Tyler Ivans, there's an acre foot that was dedicated for Holidays to buy or to have.
okay. So, my recommendation to
I understand that.
my recommendation to the rest of you that would like to talk about raw water is to please contact us individually, and please make sure that you're talking with David, because we do need your input to draft policies to make sure that this happens in a fair and equitable way. And that's really where we need to move forward with this
Can you
agenda
answer
item.
one question? How many gallons does the city use a day?
We can't answer that without our public works director, and we don't do the
I know
back
you
and
don't do
forth.
that.
So I mean, great question, just not the place for it. It would be great to talk with Dave about those things and about the public works director, because we don't have the answer to those things. And again, I know that you all have questions that you want to ask and things, but we do need to stick to the agenda, and we need to stick to the way that the meeting's supposed to be run, and that is not a back and forth. So while we do appreciate you being here and your questions and your concerns, we do need to move forward with Dave figuring out a better policy so that this doesn't bite us like it did. And now we're gonna move on to our business item, hail damage.
Sorry, Mayor. Can we get a,
We'd like to discuss this.
I'm sorry, that's not how,
Be on the agenda to
Yeah.
discuss this.
well, that's not how city council, okay, I'm so grateful you're here, but that is not how city council meetings work. This is meant to be a meeting for those of us sitting at the table,
You work for us.
and that is correct. And in order, Kaisen,
Okay, again, point of order.
in order for us to properly try to serve you, this has to be a meeting among us at the table. And so, again, please come talk with Dave. Please come talk with any of us. But this meeting is intended to try to make these decisions and to make things happen. It's not a back and forth.
And can I add, that's why we have a public input portion at the beginning of the meeting. So
I want Mr. Holliday to be on agenda for next time, for next meeting, to discuss his concern with water. If he was supposed to be on the agenda tonight, I want him on the agenda.
I was never directed by the
I thought
mayor.
Cheryl's got her name on the agenda. She's gonna call him and put me on it.
So
no, I was gonna put.
Cheryl
the
was gonna put herself
discussion-
on it.
Yeah, so that because it does limit your ability to speak. But my discussion was, maybe there's a misunderstanding. My discussion was, should city council be involved in approving water sales and purchases? So my advice and consent would, and I just think we need to hear it from all the council, is do we want a policy that requires sell and purchase? Because this purchase of water was something I think we should have discussed as well. We might have turned it down, I don't know. But I don't know all the specifics without city council involved. That's what I think. If we're working on a policy, I just want to make sure the rest of the council is on board with that, I guess.
Is everybody? Because that's what I have written down here. But two things, the buy and sell, and then also creating a policy regarding specifically the commercial raw water sale. So.
Okay, hail damage general contractor selection, Dave.
Okay, Mayor, Council, I'll be quick on this. Last council meeting, it came to you. I'll wait till the room.
So she can hear.
Yeah. I said, I think we meet with you at a different time.
I think we could put,
Who are you talking to?
Eric?
That's what that's why. So
Mr. Holiday on the agenda, but he would have to be there to present something.
that's
couldn't have
also
a
what I
team
was
back
gonna
and
say.
forth.
He has to be able to have something to actually present to the council, so.
Your idea
I would
of
ask you to
discussing
reach out to him, please.
Okay, I don't have his contact, but I'm gonna try.
I'll get it for you.
Okay. What was his first name?
Jason.
Huh? I don't know his real name.
David.
Needs to have it, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, Mayor, Council, last council meeting, we brought to you some proposals from Arrowhead Construction and from Trihurst Construction regarding general contractor work for hail damage across multiple facilities in the city. Trihurst at that time had a proposal of $125,000. They were a couple items missing. The primary one being the roof of City
Can I
Hall.
just, we have members of the audience still speaking, and you are welcome to do that out in the hallway so that our note taker can hear what she needs to hear. So thank you.
I'm so sorry, Mayor. There's one thing that's concerning me, and that is that if there was water slated for Holiday, and I think there was a couple others, I do think there needs to be something that occurs to make sure they get the water. If the water sale is already done, that they get the water that we believe was allocated to them.
No, so to be clear.
I'm so
since
sorry,
we're
but
going back,
that's bothering me right
the
now.
water sale was to the Conservancy District. And
And they distributed it?
and they sell it to those different businesses.
And that's part of why we need to be part of the discussion maybe, so that we could have said, we expect this to go here and this, but I don't know how that works either. So,
We can't sell to the public, so we sold to the Conservancy who can sell to the public.
Okay.
That's not right either.
Okay, so let's get back to,
Okay,
I just
so
want to make sure everybody gets their water.
water's
that they were supposed
important,
to
I
get.
agree.
hail damage contractor. I'm gonna recap what I said a moment ago. So we had two proposals for the hail damage general contractor. One was Trihurst for $125,000. Unfortunately, it did not include a bid for the roof of City Hall. The other bid was from Arrowhead Construction out of Emery County for, I believe, about $184,000, maybe, and some change. The council tabled it to see if we could get an updated bid from Trihurst. They provided us with that updated bid. The amount that they came in at was, I believe, 196.
199.
199,000 and some change. Arrowhead Construction still remained 184,000 and some change. I reached out to the our adjuster and the insurance, and they said based on market values, they'll reimburse us for everything up to 186,000. So if the council can still choose to go with Trihurst Construction with an understanding that we would have to find an additional $13,000 in the budget to do so. Or the council may go with Arrowhead Construction and be within the full amount of what the insurance provides. As staff, we don't have any recommendation one way or the other. Trihurst is local. Emery County, the Arrowhead Construction is in Emery County, not specific local, but definitely not from way up north. And so they both seem qualified and ready to go, ready to do the work. So I just leave it open for the council to discuss and make a decision. And then once you decide which contractor you want to go with, then staff will come back to you with a negotiated contract.
Okay. Has any questions? Recommendations, ideas?
$13,000, where can we pull
$13,000?
it? I would like to go with Trihurst Construction because they are our local business.
I agree.
Or if it's come from savings, that will make up that difference. You'll have to pull it from your capital savings to do it.
Can we negotiate, or was this a closed? I mean, it's obviously not a closed bid.
I think we have Mr. Hurst here. If he's willing to work with us, I think that would have to come from him.
I think that this roof is I don't know the correct way to put it, but it's gonna be a big pain. And so I think that the bid is reasonable for what a challenge it's gonna be to do that.
Joe, could you maybe speak to what the council is discussing?
I think in my proposal, I offered possible reductions in the price we gave you. I those bid numbers together based strictly on.
Hang on.
Sorry, Joe, we've got to turn up the volume. All right, repeat. So did you mention in the proposal a willingness to negotiate?
Yeah, there's some of those things that really don't need to be part of this work, given the time that's elapsed since the hail damage occurred. And so I could go back and tell you I think in my proposal, I indicated the items that could be deleted. Right off the top, there's the first two items are 7,000 and change, 7,500. There's some stuff that they asked for on the baseball park building roof. They asked for a 25 gauge metal. What's there is 29 gauge. We could reduce that price, save some money there. So I priced it the way you asked me to, with the thought that we could negotiate some of those prices down.
And to be fair to both contractors expressed a willingness to do that. So I just want to make sure that that's known to the council.
Joe, and your supplies will come through San Juan Builders?
Yeah.
And where are Arrowhead Supplies coming?
I don't know, I can't.
We're supporting 2 businesses in Blanding.
Totally agree. It would be nice if we could get this as close to 186,000 as possible for Tri-Hearst, but
But I also think that we need to pay them reasonably what it costs. I think that we don't ask them to do things for free either. So,
Well, I'm not reducing my cost, I'm just reducing the scope of what you're asking. So it's not costing me any more to
Okay.
give those reductions. I'd be happy to sit down with staff and talk through each of those items. I think we could come pretty close to taking 10 grand out of there rather easily.
great.
So just to kind of recap for the public, what he's saying is, you know, where maybe there's a certain, because he just bid on exactly what was there. And the only caveat with insurance is they will only reimburse apples to apples as long as it's not an upgrade. So if we're getting something that's probably equal to or lesser than, then I don't think there should be a problem with that. So.
Okay. And I guess I do need to declare that my husband is general manager at San Juan Building Supply. I did not declare a conflict of interest because he doesn't control where Tri-Hearst, you know, buys their materials, but you do need to know that that matters to me. And so,
Well, and look who is supporting. Is supporting you too, because your husband still has a job.
yes. I would take a motion then.
I'll make it that we, I don't know, how do we want to word it?
That
Make a
we-
motion that we accept Tri-Hearst contract construction for the repairs on Blanding City buildings
Direct,
with
I was gonna say direct staff to negotiate. a
direct staff
contract.
and to negotiate with Mr. Hurst.
All right. That's Grover and Nelson, all in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
what a great thing we just did.
Thanks
So
for being
proud of
here,
us.
Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Man,
Okay, please tell me we
No
don't have a
reason for
closed
closed
session.
I think this open session was exciting enough.
I will accept a motion to adjourn since I can't do it myself.
no
Right there.
closed session?
No,
Oh.
I need a second. Come on.
I guess second.
Okay, motion and second. That was Grover and Nilsson again. Grover made the motion and Nilsson was the second. And we're all in favor.
Let me just make sure I end all these meetings.
Can I entertain staff for a minute now that you're not in council meeting?
We can't really
Just
talk
not
back
with
to you
the
as a
council.
group.
Three of us, you know.
You can talk. You don't have to talk to me. Can I just give you some information? You're not in the council.
I didn't hit this. Does that matter?
Hold on, let me just end the whole Zoom thing here and make sure that the meeting is officially ended.